This webisode will walk you through the budget development portion of the FDPNE application template. In this example scenario, the applicant plans to conduct a series of nutrition education classes with a cooking demonstration. The applicant also plans to create and distribute a nutrition-themed calendar. The budget narrative section is divided into 8 subsections labeled with the letters A through H. In Section A, you will list any personnel you are requesting funding for. You should be sure to list their full salary and what percentage you are requesting funding for. In addition, your narrative or justification should state why they are critical to accomplishing your project and achieving your goal. In this example, the applicant is requesting 100% of a project coordinator salary and 50% of a nutrition educator salary. Please double-check your math when completing the subtotal row. In Section B of the budget narrative, you will list your organization's fringe benefit rate and then any fringe benefits you are requesting for specific personnel included in Section A. In this example, we have a 30% fringe benefit rate. Therefore, we are asking for 30% of the full-time equivalent project coordinator salary, 30% of $41,600, which is $12,480, and 30% of the partial nutrition educator salary, 30% of $26,000, which is $7,800. Again, we are double-checking our math when completing the subtotal row. If part of your project involves the use of contract work, you will include this in Section C of the budget narrative. Contract work is performed at an hourly rate for a set number of hours. If this section does not apply to your project, enter 0 in all the columns, or leave the columns blank. For this example, we are going to contract a graphic designer for the nutrition calendar. We have a quote that it will cost around $2,400. In Section D of the budget narrative, you will include both out-of-state travel D1 and in-state travel D2. Any travel must directly relate to activities you have listed in your project timeline. You will be asked to provide a rough estimate of costs for flights, mileage, lodging, and per diem. Not all rows will apply to your project, depending on the mode of transportation and length of trip. Leave the cells blank that do not apply to your project. You should make sure you use the GSA federal per diem rates in your request. These can be found at the website shown on your screen. Section E of the budget narrative will contain all the materials and supplies you will need to purchase to carry out your project. Materials and supplies are items with a unit cost less than $5,000. In this example, we are requesting funding for supplies for our nutrition education classes and cooking demonstrations. Keep in mind, all materials and supplies requested should directly relate to the project activities. Refer to the list of items FNS will consider funding in Section 2 of the RFA. Keep in mind that nutrition education reinforcement materials, also commonly referred to as incentives, should have a unit cost of $5 or less, and no more than 3 items will be funded for each grant application. In addition, items are provided per household, not per individual. Anything costing more than $5,000 per unit is considered equipment and will be listed in Section F. For this example project, we're not requesting any equipment in Section F. You will list any other costs in Section G of the budget narrative. This includes things that do not fall within the other categories, such as postage or shipping. In this example, we are requesting funding to print the nutrition education calendars in Section G. Section H is your project total cost. You will add all the subtotals listed in sections A through G for federal funds and list them in row H1. You should then use your organization's indirect cost rate agreement to determine which funds to apply the indirect cost rate to and list the total indirect costs in row H2. Keep in mind, you need to submit a copy of your indirect cost rate agreement with your application. You will then add the totals from H1 and H2 to determine your total project cost in row H3. In this example, our total project cost is $111,303. It is very important that your budget is accurately calculated to ensure you receive all the necessary funding to carry out your project. We recommend having 2 or 3 people double-check your work prior to submission.